The first thing I noticed about Sergeant Dania Reyes was her boots. Not her rank. Not the way she filled a doorway like she'd been built specifically to block it. Her boots. They were the same standard issue leather as everyone else's, cracked at the toe bend, laces double knotted the way you learn to do after your second patrol. But hers had red clay dried in the grooves, the kind that only comes from the eastern ridge trails, the ones no one takes voluntarily because they climb 40 degrees through loose shale, and the only thing waiting at the top is more mountain. She'd been out that morning. Before briefing. Look, before coffee, probably. Plus, I remember thinking, that's either discipline or insomnia. 6 weeks in, I still hadn't figured out which one it was. The briefing room in Camp Hazara smelled the way every forward operating base smells. Burnt coffee, hydraulic fluid, someone's wet socks hung over a chair they thought was private. Lieutenant Colonel Breslin stood at the front with a printout he kept folding and unfolding like it was going to change what it said. It wasn't. We had a problem. The problem had a name. Firebase Kilo 7, a relay station sitting on a ridgeline 12 kilometers northeast, had gone dark 48 hours ago. No signal. Plus, no response. The last transmission was 11 seconds of static, and then a voice, Sergeant First Class Denaro, according to comms logs, saying contact, east perimeter, there, and then nothing. 23 personnel. Breslin didn't say presumed dead. He said status unknown. The military has a specific vocabulary for things it doesn't want to be true yet. Basically, recon first protocol, he said. 4-man fire team, and confirm status. Like established comms if possible. If Kilo 7 is compromised, he paused, unfolded the paper, folded it again. You don't engage. You observe, document to be fair, and extract. Any questions? There were no questions. There basically never are when the question you actually want to ask is why us. That's when Reyes, from the back row, said, Sir, request to lead the element. The room did a thing rooms do sometimes. Not quite silence, more like everyone drawing a small, collective breath and holding it. Breslin looked at her, which several people looked at her. Corporal Thatch, sitting next to me, looked at the ceiling. Breslin, for what it's worth, said, Granted. And that was that. I should tell you about Dania Reyes before I tell you what happened on that ridge. Not because the story requires it. Because the story is it. She'd kind of come to Hazara 3 months before a unit rotated in, which meant she had the specific, quiet authority of someone who already knew where everything was. She knew which generator ran hot, and which was fine, which sector of the eastern wire was loose, which cook would give you an extra bread roll if you made eye contact, and nodded like you meant it. She'd done a prior deployment in a place I can't name here, and before that, training cycles that left her with a scar along her left forearm she never mentioned, and a habit of touching it when she was thinking through a problem. She, I guess, was 29. She'd scored a 98 on her ASFOB. I know th isn't because she told anyone she hadn't, but because Corporal Thatch had a gift for finding information. That wasn't his business, and he'd shared it with me one night while we were both pretending to sleep. 98, he'd whispered to the dark. Out of 99. What happened to the last point? Math section. One problem. I thought about that for a while. Then, she know you looked that up? Buddy, Thatch said, she knows everything. The thing about that score, the thing that mattered, the thing I didn't understand until the ridge, is that it wasn't the number itself. It was what the number said about how her brain worked. It classified differently. It saw things for what it's worth, arranged in a specific order, priorities stacked, and res-tacked in real time. The way a chess player doesn't see pieces, but sees sequences. The men in Delta Squad. Ours was a mixed integration unit, which was still new enough that people had feelings about it they hadn't learned to stop expressing, didn't know the number. What they knew was what they decided before she'd unpacked her kit, that she was here because a form said she should be, and forms lie. Corporal Mendez, specifically, he had a way of saying things without quite saying them. How do you make Sergeant ask like a math problem he was genuinely puzzled by? You sure you want the East Patrol with a kind of theatrical concern? The way you'd ask a child if they're sure they want the spicy food. It wasn't violent, and it wasn't even particularly mean in the way meanness usually announces itself. It was quieter than that, and Reyes, for 3 months, up until the morning of Kilo 7, said nothing back. She went on the East Patrol, which she came back with red clay in her boots. She ate her bread roll. She touched the scar on her forearm and thought about whatever she was thinking about. Thatch said she was waiting. I didn't know what for. Chapter 2. The briefing. Nobody wanted the four of us assembled at the vehicle bay at 0530. Reyes. Me. Specialist Okafor, which is what this account will call me because names have a way of becoming other things after the fact. Thatch. And Mendez, which was Breslin's call, not Reyes's, and which meant that the four of us were going to spend 12 hours in close proximity with whatever unfinished conversation Mendez had been having with the air around her for 3 months. But for what it's worth, the vehicle was a light patrol carrier. It would get us to the base of the ridgeline. The last 4 kilometers we'd do on foot. Mendez spent the first 20 minutes of the drive doing inventory. Loudly, the way people inventory when what they're actually doing is establishing they know what they're doing. Mags check. Plus, comms check. Medical pouch. He kept his voice just loud enough that it filled the carrier without quite being directed at anyone. Reyes was reading a topographic printout, folded into quarters. I watched the desert come up through my window. You get used to it, people say, and that's true in the way getting used to standing in cold water is true. You don't stop feeling it, you just stop reacting. The Hazara Valley in early morning was flat brown light, and wind that smelled like dry rock, and someone's breakfast cooking 2 kilometers away, and somewhere out there, radio silence. Kilo 7 had a 9-person night watch, Reyes said. Not to anyone in particular. The way she said things sometimes, like she was speaking a thought into the room, and anyone could pick it up. According to what? Mendez said. Rotation logs. Breslin's printout. She turned the topo map. Which means if they went dark mid-watch, we're looking at a point of contact somewhere on the perimeter, not inside. Infiltration would have tripped the interior sensors first. Or the sensors failed. Both sensors. Simultaneously. In my opinion, she looked up at him for exactly as long as it takes to let a sentence breathe. Sure. Thatch, sitting next to me, made a sound that was technically not a laugh. Mendez looked out his window. Plus, the carrier hit a rut, and we all grabbed something. Reyes's topo map unfolded itself fully across her knees, and she folded it back without looking down, the crease landing exactly where it had been before. I thought, she's been over this ridge before. Basically not a guess. A red, and you've run this route, I said. She looked at me twice. When? Before you got here, Mendez said voluntarily. She didn't answer that one. Outside, the road well stopped being a road and became a suggestion. The carrier dropped to second gear, and the engine complained about it. The ridgeline was ahead of us now, visible, which sounds reassuring until you're looking at it, and realizing visible just means you can see exactly how much there's. 40 degrees, loose shale, which red clay, and 12 kilometers of unknown at the top. At the vehicle drop point, we adjusted kit in silence. This is always a specific kind of silence. Not unfriendly, not cold. Just the particular quiet of people running through private checklists they've run so many times the words have worn grooves. Reyes called us together before we moved. Shino had the topo map out again. She'd honestly marked it, not with standard grid notation, but with something more detailed, handwritten in small block letters I had to lean in to read. Elevation notes. A wind notation at the crest. 2 points, I guess, marked with small X's that weren't on the printed version. What are those? Thatch asked, pointing. Cache points, she said. Supply runs before you arrived. There's a short stretch near the crest where you're exposed for about 40 meters. No natural cover. We move through that in pairs, 10 seconds apart, don't bunch. She looked at each of us. Questions? Thatch shook his head. Ishukmina. Mendez said, what's your score on mountain NAV? It landed in the air between us like something dropped on tile. Nobody moved. Reyes looked at him. The, I guess, wind came up the valley and moved her collar and then went away. Her hand was at her side, not at the scar. Not yet, and my score, she said. Yeah. He kept his voice level, reasonable, the voice of a man asking for perfectly reasonable information. Mountain navigation qual. What did you pull? The 3 of us, me, Thatch, the ridgeline, waited. She folded the topo map, tucked it into her left breast pocket. We move in 4 minutes, she said. Drink water. She turned toward the ridge. Mendez watched her back. His jaw was doing something that wasn't quite anything yet. I wanted, to tell him, she's been up this ridge twice in the dark voluntarily. I wanted to say, the X's on that map are hers. But that's not how those conversations work, and anyway, he hadn't asked me. Thatch drank his water. For minutes later, I guess we moved. Not because there's a rule, because your lungs make the decision for you. The shale gave under your boot, and then caught, gave, and caught. After the look, first kilometer your thighs were burning in that specific way that Tess sent pain yet, but is making promises. The sky had gone from black to the dark blue that comes before color shows up. Below us, the valley was a flat gray plate with the carrier on it looking like a toy someone left out. Reyes set the pace. This sounds like nothing. It wasn't like nothing. Setting a climb pace for a four-person element on a technical ridgeline is a negotiation between what's medically sustainable and what the mission requires, and getting it wrong in either direction costs you. Too fast, and someone's cramping at the top when you need them sharp, too slow, and you're exposed when the light comes up full. She'd calculated something, and she moved at exactly the rate that kept us breathing hard but not ragged, and I watched her do it without appearing to do it, which is the specific intelligence of someone who's run a problem so many times the solution is just their body. The loose section started about 2 kilometers up. I felt it before I saw it. The shale got finer, almost powdery, and the slope angle shifted by a degree or two, which sounds like nothing and feels like everything when your boot sole is the only thing between you and a 200-meter slide. Reyes stopped, held up a fist. We stopped behind her. She pointed to a line of traverse, not straight up, but diagonal, using 2 small outcroppings as intermediate holds, the kind of route you'd only know was there if you'd look for it in daylight and memorize it for darkness. Her X's. She went first. Smooth. No drama. I went second. My left boot slipped once, just a centimeter, just a catch. And my heart did something I won't describe because there aren't good words for it, just the animal thing that happens when your body remembers it's fragile. Thatch went third, which Mendez went last, and I watched him from the first outcropping, and I'll give him this. He moved well. Whatever his problems with Reyes were, they weren't in his legs or his hands. He came pretty much across the loose section clean, and when he reached us, his breathing was controlled. Reyes was already scanning ahead, not looking at him. We kept climbing. 40 minutes later, the crest, and it's a specific physical sensation, cresting a ridgeline at dawn. The wind hits you from the other side, the view doubles, and your body does this brief, involuntary pause that tests tactical. It's just human. You made it up. Part of you is surprised every time. Plus, the fire base was visible from the crest. Kilo 7 sat on a natural shelf about 200 meters below the far side of the ridge. A compact installation, maybe 100 meters square, surrounded by wire and a low berm. From up here, I could see the layout clearly. 2 main structures, a comms tower, vehicle shelter, generator housing. Everything looked intact. That basically was the wrong kind of wrong. No visible porcenet. No movement. No smoke from the cook station. But the wire was up. The vehicles were in place. Nothing was burned. Reyes had her binoculars up before I did. Generator's off, she said. Plus, how can you tell? Thatch asked. Comms tower light is out. It runs on the generator. She swept the binoculars slowly, left to right, the way you do when you're not looking for something specific, you're letting wrong things find you. East perimeter gate is open. Mendez said could be evac. Could be. She lowered the binoculars. Her hand went to the scar on her forearm. Came back. Sort of movement protocol. We go down in pairs. Thatch, you're with me, and Okafor, you've Mendez. We leapfrog to the berm. Don't enter until I signal. You're taking point, Mendez said. Yes. Standard element lead is me. She looked at him. Not long. Not a speech. Just the simple, declarative weight of the fact. Any tactical reason to discuss it? A second passed that had a lot of things in it. For what it's worth, no, he said. Good. She honestly was already moving toward the descent. Stay low through the exposed section. Plus, the shelf gives us cover at about 60 meters. Push to that and hold. Chapter 4. What the silence sounds like we found them in the second structure. All 23. I'll tell you what I saw, and I'll tell you it correctly because this kind of thing deserves accuracy. They were alive. All of them. Jammed into the interior of the comms building. Bunks stacked, floor space used, no windows. And when we came through the door, Sergeant First Class Denaro was on his feet before we were all the way in with his weapon up, and his eyes doing the thing eyes do when they've been in darkness long enough that even low light is too much. Friendly, Reyes said. Just the one word. Denaro's weapon came down, and he sat back down on the nearest bunk. His honestly, hands were shaking, but in the way hands shake after. Not the shaking of fear, but the shaking of fear finally leaving, which is actually worse to watch. Generator, he said. We saw. Fuel line got cut, and 3 nights ago, I think, didn't know if it was he stopped. Comms went with the generator. The antenna backup failed last year, and nobody pushed the repair ticket hard enough, and he stopped again. Laughed once, a TBH strange dry sound. 23 people in a dark box because somebody didn't push a repair ticket. The full story took 20 minutes to get. No enemy contact, which no infiltration. A fuel line failure that cascaded into a comms failure that cascaded into a group of trained soldiers spending 48 hours in interior silence, rationing water, unsure whether help was coming or whether what was coming was something else. The 11 seconds of static from Denaro had been him trying to report a noise outside the east perimeter that turned out to be a feral dog working the wire. 23 people. Whole. The relief of it, the way it hit the body, is something I still don't have a category for. We actually set up the portable relay on the shelf outside, while Denaro's unit pulled themselves back together. Reyes had the comms gear out and configured in 8 minutes, which I know because I was watching the clock for something to do with my hands. Thatch was inside with the Kilo 7 medic, doing assessments. Mendez was doing a perimeter walk, checking the wire, the berm, the gate, things that needed checking. Doing his job, which was real regardless of everything else. I sat on the berm with Reyes while she waited for Hazara to confirm the relay signal. The sun was fully up now. The valley below was warming, the flat brown going gold at the edges. Somewhere down there, a bird was doing something with a lot of enthusiasm. He's not a bad soldier, I said. She looked at me. Mendez, kind of which on the traverse. He moved well. She went back to the relay setup. I know. He just Okafor. She said it the way you say something when you're deciding how much to give. To be fair, I know what he's. I've known what TBH he's since week 2. She ran a check sequence on the relay. Green light. It doesn't change how I do my job. Doesn't it bother you? She was quiet for a moment. Below like us, the valley bird was really committing. It's like the math problem, she said. To be fair, I waited. For what it's worth, the one I missed. On the ASFOB. She wasn't looking at me. You think about, well, it enough, you can work backwards and see where your reasoning went wrong. The error isn't random. There's a logic to it. Once you, see the logic, the error isn't personal anymore. It's just a sequence that produced the wrong answer. I thought about that. And Mendez is a math problem. Mendez is a math problem, she said, with a fixable error set. The relay beeped. Hazar on the line, Breslin's voice crackling through with something in it that was almost but not quite relief. Military voices doing military things with emotions. Kilo 7 well, element confirmed status. Reyes keyed the handset. Kilo 7 status. 23 personnel, all present, no casualties. Comms failure, fuel system origin, which no hostile contact. Requesting resupply and technical. Say again, no hostile contact? Confirmed. No hostile contact. A pause, and we're ready to receive. The crackling. Then, outstanding work, Sergeant. She set the handset down and looked at the valley. I thought she was going to say something. She didn't. That actually kind of operational aftermath is its own specific experience. The adrenaline has left the building. The body is trying to remember how to be regular, and everything is slightly too bright and slightly too slow. The Kilo 7 personnel came out of the comms building in stages, the way people leave a room when they're not sure the hallway is safe yet. Blinking. Sitting on the berm, someone opened a ration pack, and the smell of it, that specific military-issue food smell, chemical-adjacent, salt-heavy, had the effect smells sometimes have of making a thing feel real. Denaro's is second in command. A young corporal named Estevez started crying. Just standing up with his ration pack and then sitting down and putting his face in his hands. Nobody kind of made a point of it. Two people sat close to him without making it a thing. That's a skill. You either have it or you learn it, and the learning is expensive. Reyes was going through the fuel line with Kilo 7's maintenance tech, a thin specialist named Braun who kept pushing her glasses up her nose with the back of her wrist. They were crouched over the generator housing, and I could hear the technical back and forth without understanding most of it, except for the parts where Braun would point and Reyes would nod and occasionally say something that made Braun write something down. This went on for a while. Mendez sat on the berm about 15 meters from where I was. He had his, I think, water bottle, and he was looking at the valley. Not performing, just sitting. I went and sat near him. We had kind of the specific silence of two people who don't know each other well enough to talk. Know each other well enough to know that silence is fine. The wind had come up on the far side, and it moved through the wire fencing with a low, steady hum. Below us, the valley's gold light had deepened, and a dust haze was building on the northern edge. How'd she know about the cache points? Mendez said finally. Not hostile, genuinely curious, which was different, and I think he heard the difference in himself as he was saying it. She ran the ridge before we arrived, I said. Twice. On her own. He was quiet for a moment. What was she looking for? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe just, I try to find the word. Knowing. He turned that over. The traverse, he said. Yeah. I thought, he stopped. Started again. I thought she was guessing on that traverse. The diagonal line. I thought it was intuition, or luck, or he stopped again. It wasn't. No. She'd done the math. She'd done the math. He looked at his water bottle. The hum look in a wire shifted pitch as the wind changed. Somewhere inside the comms building, someone was laughing. The specific, slightly unhinged laugh of a person who's been scared for 2 days and just got permission to stop. The score thing, Mendez said. I waited. I was testing if she'd get defensive. That's the tell, you know? When someone, gets defensive, they're not sure. He paused. I do that. I know. She didn't. No. He nodded slowly. Not at me. At something in the middle distance that was probably just the honest reckoning of a man looking at his own logic and finding the error. The door to the comms building opened, and Reyes came out with Braun, still talking. Braun was gesturing well at a schematic she'd sketched on the back of a ration box. Reyes was nodding. Her hand was at her side, not at the scar. Chapter 6. What he asked her had happened on the walk back to the carrier. The resupply had been confirmed, Denaro's unit was squared, and our 4-person element was making the climb back over the ridge in late afternoon light. Going down is different from going up. The legs are tired in a new way. The angle puts weight forward. The shale is exactly as treacherous. But you're going home. Plus, the body knows. We basically were at the loose section, the traverse, and Reyes was taking it first again. Mendez said, Sergeant. She stopped. Pretty much looked back. I need to ask you something. The wind. The shale. Thatch, in my opinion, and I both did the thing of suddenly being very interested in separate patches of rock. Okay, she said. Plus, your sort of score on the ASFOB. He sat straight. No performance of casualness this time. This morning I asked like I was testing you. I know that. That's not how I'm asking now. Reyes looked at him. I'm asking because I want to know who I'm working with. A moment passed. 98, she said. Mendez's face did something. Plus, out sort of 99, she added. Missed one on the math section. He said, what problem? She almost smiled. It was pretty much a small thing, the corner of something. Spatial reasoning. Multivariable. I took the I guess short route on the calculation, and it compounded. She looked out at the traverse line she'd mapped in her head on a dark night 2 months ago. I've thought about it a lot. You fixed the error, he said. I fixed the error. He nodded once. That kind of nod that's actually an entire conversation happening in compressed form, the kind where a man who has been doing a thing a certain way sees, maybe for the first time in clear light, what that thing looks like. Lead the way, he said. She turned toward the traverse. She went first. Honestly smooth. Honestly, I went second. Plus, Thatch went third. Well, Mendez went last. When he came across and reached us, he didn't say anything. He didn't have to. We climbed down. That's normal, which that's actually the most normal part of everything I've described, the coming back quiet. You've been running on a specific kind of attention for hours, and now the mission is done. The body begins the long, strange process of standing down, and what that feels like from the inside is mostly just being very tired in your face. Thatch fell asleep against the window before we'd gone 3 kilometers. He had a talent for that. The specific ability to be unconscious on command, which I'd always considered either a gift or evidence of something I didn't want to examine closely. His head knocked against the glass with the bumps in the road, and he didn't wake up. The desert was doing what the desert does in late afternoon. The light going sideways and orange, shadows long and architectural. Every rock had a twin made of darkness. Mendez, was looking out his window. He'd been quiet since the traverse, which was different from his usual quiet. His usual quiet had an edge to it, an ongoing editorial. This was just quiet, a man running something through his head and not narrating. Reyes had the topo map out again. I watched Hermine mark something new on it, another small X near the crest at a point I didn't recognize. Not a cache point. Something else. What's that one? I asked. She looked at the mark. Wind shift, she said. Plus, the crosswind on the crest runs different in afternoon than morning. I want to account for it next time. Next time. Not if we go back. Just next time. The assumption that she would be the person who went back. The assumption that there was useful information in this ridgeline that hadn't yet been extracted. I thought about the repair ticket that hadn't been pushed. I guessed the fuel line. 23 people in a dark box because something small went unfixed. Does Breslin know about the wind shift? I said, he will. She folded the map. I'll put it in the debrief. Outside, a road sign went past. One of the battered ones that marked the turnoff to Hazara. Text half scoured by weather. 2 kilometers. Can I ask you something? I said. She looked at me, which the X's. The cache points. I think the wind notes. The ridge runs in the dark. I kept my voice even. Was any of that in your orders? She held the topo map in both hands. Looked at it. The carrier hit a rut, and we all grabbed something. No, she said. Pretty much so why? A moment. Because nobody told me what I need to know, she said. And I needed to know. That's all she said. It was enough. We pulled into Hazara at 1847. The debrief ran 90 minutes and covered everything in the correct order: route, contact, status of Kilo 7 personnel, relay establishment, resupply confirmation. Reyes gave the wind notation at the end. Breslin wrote it down. Someone on his staff, a young lieutenant who'd been taking notes the whole time, looked up at her when she said it, the kind of look that's storing something. Mendez gave his portion of the debrief in the same flat, accurate language everyone used. When he reached the traverse, he said Sergeant Reyes identified and an alternative route through the unstable section, demonstrating superior route familiarity. He said it without inflection. He said it because it was accurate. That was pretty much all it was. But accurate is a kind of thing, and after the debrief in the kit storage bay, I saw him cross the room toward Reyes while she was breaking down her pack. She saw him coming. She didn't move away or toward him, just waited. He said something, and lo, I wasn't close enough to hear the words. I think she listened, said something back. He nodded honestly, walked back toward the door. On his way out, he looked at me for exactly a moment. Not a look that asked for anything, just a look that acknowledged I was there. And then he was gone. I looked at Reyes. Plus, she was back to her pack. What did he say? I asked. She pulled out her boots, set them on the floor. Red clay in the grooves. He said sorry, she told the boots. And you said? She considered. I said thank you for the work on the perimeter sweep. She put the boots together, toes aligned. He did good work. Outside, the generator was running. The comms tower light was on. Somewhere across the FOB radio was doing something with static and then resolving into someone's voice. Reflection, in my opinion, what I know now, I've been out for 2 years. I work in logistics now, civilian logistics, which is mostly spreadsheets and the occasional conference call about freight routes. And I want to tell you it's boring, but I've lost the ability to find things boring in the way I used to. Something about having been somewhere where the wrong number in the wrong column costs people their lives makes every spreadsheet feel like it matters. I think well about Reyes sometimes. Not in a complicated way. In the way you think about a compass. The thing that showed you which direction was actually north when you'd gotten confused about it. Now, to be fair, think about the score. Plus, 98 out of 99. One spatial reasoning problem, multivariable. She took the short route on the calculation. She fixed the error. That's the thing nobody tells you about people like Reyes. The thing the Mendezes of the world can't see until they're standing at a shale traverse in low light, and the person in front of them has been there before in the dark, alone, building a map for exactly this moment. The score isn't the number. The score is what you do with the problem you got wrong. The score is going back up the ridge. Mendez, last I heard, put in a transfer request that got approved about 6 months after I rotated out. He went to a different unit. I don't know what happened after that. People diverge. Plus, sometimes they find their way back to something better, and sometimes they don't, and the only thing I know for certain is that for one afternoon on a ridgeline, he saw clearly, and what he saw was worth seeing. Thatch, to be fair, got a commendation for the Kilo 7 medic work. He spent the rest of his service falling asleep against windows and waking up at exactly the right moment. He's teaching high school now. History, which seems right. Braun pushed the kind of repair ticket for every backup system at Kilo 7 the morning after he got back. All of them in one day. Breslin approved them all by noon. I don't know where Reyes is. She had more rotations ahead of her when I left. And people like her, people whose fingerprints are all over the ridgelines and the wind charts and the debrief notes, tend to keep moving forward the way water finds the lowest path through any terrain.